Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter with Marty McNabb. As many of you by now know, I am just fascinated with the stories that get attached to the things. And I don't have a lot of them, as many of you know, either, because I am basically nomadic. So I live in a 21-foot Winnebago Travato named Brooklyn. And needless to say, when you live more of a nomadic life, you have to be aware of how many things you have. So I've limited them, and they either have a story or a purpose. But I agree with the bumper sticker that says the best things in life aren't things. But I've also found that things have a way of holding on to the best stories, the memories of life. So I have a wonderful guest today, and let's see if I can bring her up to the stage. Let's see. There we go. And I'm going to ask you to start your video. I'm sorry, Gloria. Yay. Okay. So my guest today, I have known probably the longest that I've known any of my other guests, except for our friend Sam Yule, who is Sam niece or Nace right now, and she was a previous guest of mine. But Gloria is my second personal historian who is I've welcomed as a guest of my show. And it is so funny, like I had said with Sam, that my whole show and tales, my whole life as a personal historian and legacy artist started when I connected, started a little bit before, but then I found out about this group of people who help people record their stories, preserve their stories, and share their stories. We were all members of the sadly folded Association of Personal Historians. And I swear I met you the first conference I ever went to, which was in Las Vegas. I believe you were there. Yes, because
I went to after I joined the association. And first of all, thank you, Marty. It's lovely to be together again. When I joined the Association of Personal Historians right after 9/11 in 2001, I went to every single conference after that until it folded. So yes, I was definitely there.
definitely there. Yes. So and what I found so fascinating with Gloria is, so I think we had recognized that there were a lot of our colleagues who it seemed like they wanted to do everything. And they would dabble in a lot of different areas. And a lot of them were memoirists, they were writers. And then there were a ton of people who were in the legacy filmmakers or video biographers. There were lots of people in those areas, but there were very few people like Gloria and I. And right, there are very few. It's like we were niches inside of niches. So we were always explaining ourselves to our colleagues, but it was a delight. It was a delight. So to explain a little bit more, I'm going to have Gloria, before the show and tell section, I am going to have Gloria talk a little bit about why I brought this up right away, that she offers a unique service to people, that there's not that many people that are doing it. But thankfully, I've heard a few other youngins starting at it now, and that you're actually consulting them. So I love that. So take it away and share that part, and then we'll get into the show and tales.
Very good. Thanks again, Marty. Well, I decided before I ever figured out that there was such a thing as a personal historian that I used to work in radio broadcasting in Phoenix, Arizona. Actually, I'm currently in Oregon, 25 years worth, and been in love with voice and radio for as long as I can remember. The first thing I ever bought myself was a transistor radio. I would have brought that today, except that when I lived in Miami, it got stolen. So it actually, things do matter, and that one matters a lot, and it's gone from my life. But that got me into the radio business. And so, of course, when I started to be a personal historian, I decided that I was going to work in audio format, which basically means that I record you in your voice telling your story. And when you're done, you have your stories in your voice, sharing them with your family and your loved ones and your friends. So I work exclusively in audio format, which is what I call it. And it's not really quite oral history, although people have to be able to talk if they're going to work with me. That's very helpful. But my business is reel to reel, REAL to REEL, recording personal stories, and we can get into that a bit later.
More about talk more about that later. I just there like I said, there aren't a lot of people that I met in the first many years that I was part of APH. And you were pretty much it. But like I said, I've recently met a few people actually on this coast, on the where I am right now is in Vermont, and where I live part-time. And they're in the New England area. So they're on the East Coast, basically across the country from you. But I know that they've reached out to you because I was just like, if this is an area that you're interested in, you need to talk to Gloria. So
thank you.
And I know that they had heard about it already. And the best part is that a year and a half ago, or a year, not even a half, but over a year ago, I was on a 5-month road trip in Brooklyn, my camper van. And I got the great pleasure because, of course, as we mentioned, APH folded, no more conferences. Obviously, there's tons of people who are still doing all of this work. So there's memoirists and other oral historians for public situations and private, and people are doing this work, helping people record and save their stories. But the association folded. So needless to say, we really miss that in-person experience. And so I was just so grateful to have the opportunity when I was in Portland to get a chance to sit down with Gloria and have a cup of coffee and a visit while I was there. And that was very nice.
Indeed. Lest my friends who know me well think I actually started drinking coffee, the answer is no. We went to quote unquote coffee, but I didn't drink it because I still don't like the taste of coffee. just to make sure that my friends understand that I haven't fallen
not
off
drinking coffee.
Haven't fallen off that wagon. Or onto that wagon, I should say.
Onto that wagon. Oh, and it's a big wagon.
It is.
We actually met at a Capital One cafe because we joked about the fact that banks did everything in their power to discourage people to use tellers. They forced everybody to start using ATMs. And then they realized, the most important thing, right, which is what we're all about, is relationships. And you have to develop relationships. And the only way you do is with people. So they're bringing coffee shops back into
into the banks or right next door,
or something. It's like, my mother you can still find tellers in Vermont at a lot of the banks, but it's, and I'm somebody who used to be like that, but now I'm like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't have any time. I've got to get my, it's just funny how life, how the pendulum swings.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
Yes. So without further ado, I am going to turn the stage over to you and have you do the show and tell segment of this. And I thank you very much for joining me, Gloria. I look forward to your show and tell.
Well, I have to start sort of at the beginning, and that is that I was born and raised in Western New York State, southeast of Buffalo. And I was born in Buffalo, but never lived there, but basically grew up in what I consider my hometown of Arcade, New York. And I grew up in a family that was somewhat strict in terms of what was okay to do. So my born and raised a Mennonite, and in those days, one of the things that Mennonite young girls or children were not allowed to do was to dance. And so when they would have dancing, say even in the gym class at school, then my parents would write a note that said, please excuse Gloria from gym class. And I just had to, I don't even remember what I did. Did I just stand on the sidelines or went to study hall? I don't even remember. But I have to say that I sort of wanted to dance. It seemed like a fun thing. I wasn't sure what the problem was, but that's just the way it was. Well, needless to say, when I was 13, the Beatles were just beginning to be a thing. I mean, my age was just perfect.
Yes.
I could not have planned it better if I had tried to have been born in the year that I was born and to go with the years so that I actually know how old I am, because I am mathematically challenged. But let's just say that that I was 13 in 1963. You can do the math. And the Beatles were just starting to become a thing. I had bought myself a little transistor radio, and I can't remember. I think I had that before anything else because, and I was infatuated. I don't know what it was, but me and millions of other let me go back and say that millions of other young females were enthralled as well. Well, at some point, and I don't remember whether it was my 13th birthday or whether it was Christmas of or my 14th birthday, it would have been 1964, when the Beatles they were putting out albums and that kind of thing. And I always, of course, wanted records. That was what I wanted. I wanted records. I wanted Beatles records. Well, either on my birthday in early March or in Christmas of 1964, I'm not sure which, my parents bought me this album introducing the Beatles. Now, people who know anything about the Beatles know that, like, this is not an album that most people have ever heard of. First of all, it's on the VJ label, VEEJAY, and we all know that the Beatles were on Capitol. Well, my parents bought me this album. This is the original album. Apparently, there are many counterfeits. I did some research yesterday and learned, but I know from everything I've read, and I know because I've had this in my hot little hands for all these years, this is the real deal. This is an original. It's the real deal. But I was like surprised and thrilled that my parents, my dad for sure, bought me this record. Now, there were some caveats that came with this record, and that was that, yeah, it was okay. So there was a record player in the dining room, and that was the only place that we had the record player at that point. And it was okay to listen or to sing along, but no movement, like no dancing to the music. I just remember that being one of the things. And it was like, but I have to say that I was thrilled out of my mind that my parents bought me a record, because they knew that it was hopeless. Basically, I'm one of the original, literally one of the original Beatles fans, and I, one way or another, I was going to get this record. Now, the one that the world knows about is actually, guess what? She has this one too. This is where the price was here, this little spot here. So you see, it's still got the original plastic on it.
Right.
And this was the first one that was released on Capitol Records. Meet the Beatles. This is the one that everybody knows.
Yeah.
But I discovered yesterday that Introducing the Beatles was actually released on January 10, 1964. And Meet the Beatles was not released until 10 days later on January 20th, 1964. And so I really do have like one of the unique original albums. And another thing that I learned years later was that the last song on the first side of this one, which is Love Me Do, and P.S. I Love You, the first song on the second side, that there are some albums on which neither one of those appear on this very same album, but Ask Me Why and Please Please Me are the two songs that are in place of this. But I learned yesterday in my research that this is version 1, and the other one with the other songs is version 2. So I'm even more jazzed because this is like the real deal. And I have moved around the country. I lived in Phoenix, the Phoenix area, for many years. And of course, my record collection went with me. And I spent 2 years in Miami, Florida. The records didn't go with me there because I knew that was a temporary volunteer kind of thing. But then, of course, 25 years ago, when I moved to the Portland area, all my records came with me there as well. So the thing that's so special, though, is what I said, is that the fact that my parents bought me this record, and and that this, as I say, this was a whole new thing for them. A kid who was into rock and roll music. I have a sister who's 18 months older than I am. She is, of course, the perfect older child. And well, she maybe listened. She didn't go nuts. Like, she didn't go crazy like Gloria did. Gloria went completely crazy about the Beatles. I have, there used to be, people don't know this, I would have brought these, but they're in a closet that I can't get into right now. But there are, people know about baseball cards.
Yes.
Well, that used to come in bubble gum. I don't know if they still do, but there was a whole series of Beatles cards that also came in. And I have, at least at last count, I had 153 of those cards.
Oh my
I
God.
gave a couple of them away, but I still have the vast majority. So, and they're just the same size as baseball cards.
Really?
Yes, I have a little pink purse. It's a Beatles purse. I have Beatles notebooks. I have virtually all of the Beatles albums, original. People now call this vinyl, but they're wrong. Right. These are records. They're albums. I know they're made out of vinyl, but we do not use that term. Hello. we do not go there. These are records, they're albums, they are not vinyl. They are made out of vinyl. Thank you very much. So yes, so I really like the early Beatles. Like, that's my favorite part of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And so so this is obviously a treasure for me. I mean, it's just, I think I probably ruined it when I put my name up here. But at a certain point, I mean, you have to claim what's yours, right? You don't want, you just got to do what you got to do. So,
oh my God. Oh, wow. And I love what you brought in about your parents just embracing the fact that you needed to do you needed to be you. This was something. And I also think it's fascinating that in all of these, like the transistor that you mentioned that sadly got stolen, and then these albums that they're all audio based. You were always deeply, so I don't know if did you ever dance to one of the songs? That's what I have to ask.
Well, let's just say that I never went to any dances, like the proms and all that stuff. That never happened. But I do have to say that then, and still now, when I'm in my house, I'm in my kitchen, usually doing the dishes or something, that there is movement involved. And even at church sometimes. I mean, we're fairly stoic, but I move around when there's a song that I really like. Yeah. I mean, and I go to a concert and my foot's tapping. So yeah. And
you still have it in you. I can't see you sit. You'd be like one of those kids that's like, I can't talk. Like I just see it in you that you have to move somehow.
Indeed. Yeah. And I do. And I do. And I have to say that, as life does happen, my parents split up. My dad, sort of went in completely the opposite direction. And I'm sure he was dancing before he died at an incredibly young age of 63. But it was my dad. And another quick story I have to say.
Yeah.
So of course, I got the Beatles. My friends, I have a niece who still buys me so much Beatles stuff. There's Beatle books all over my house. I have Beatle glasses that she bought me, drinking glasses. There's other stuff in my Beatle collection that's stuck in a closet that won't open right now, but at least it's safe that way.
Yeah.
But of course, when they first started, none of the Beatles were married, so this was good. I have to just say that Paul is my Beatle because we all have one, and he's mine. Yes. But when my dad was a pastor of our local little Mennonite church, and so that was the other piece. I'm a preacher's kid, so. Right. But he was gone to a conference, I think in Indiana at one point, and it was when Ringo got married. And he sent me a postcard that said, Gloria, I'm sure that you're quite upset that Ringo got married, but I forget exactly. And then, just finished his little whatever you would say in a nice postcard. I still have a postcard.
Do you?
I do. And I just thought it was the sweetest thing that he was paying. He knew what was going on enough to know that's what had happened, and that I would have been sad about that, because of course we all wanted each of them for ourselves, and we have to now share them with these wives. So that's adorable. So the Beatles, so I am, the people who know me well know that I have been forever and ever a Beatles fan, that I am still a Beatles fan. Just to tell you how crazy my life got, that then there were two more people that I went nuts for. The next one after the Beatles was Glenn Campbell. Oh. This makes no sense. Like, it's even more interesting. The last, my great passion is the Statler brothers. Oh. And they are very country.
Yeah.
And I actually worked in radio broadcasting at a certain point, and worked at a country station, the biggest country station in Arizona, KNIX, AM, FM. And that station was owned by Buck Owens, the country singer. Buck Owens at the time. And so that's how I sort of made my shift to the country stuff. Although Glenn Campbell was famous and doing a TV show when I was in college. And so I have almost virtually all of his albums as well. But those are the three, the Beatles, Glenn Campbell, and the Statler brothers. That's among the collections. I have a lot. Now I have a lot more albums, but we don't even want to go there. Sure. I have a working turntable. I have a working turntable. I just want you to know I can play my songs.
Of course you do. Oh my God, that is so amazing. And it's all, like I said, it's all deeply audio based. It's all like, this has been a passion for forever. So this is I think a perfect segue into my final question before I invite you to say a little bit more about what you do and how people can find you. The last question is, have you considered where these collections are going to go when you're gone?
Well, as you and I were discussing before we turned on the recording or started recording, we're not going to die, so we don't really have to answer that question. However, in case that should happen to happen, the answer is not specifically. It's interesting, the timing of this. We're recording this on the day after I attended another Zoom session with a local organizer. And yesterday's theme was what to do with sentimental papers.
Ah,
But of course, there are other things that we've talked about in other sessions and stuff. I mean, I just call it all my stuff.
stuff.
So I have a grandson who says that he likes, you know, a lot of my music. He does. I know he does.
Yeah.
So that's one possibility. But, I think this particular album, according to what I discovered yesterday online, I think this might have some monetary value, and I'm not above
Yeah.
because the thing that's most important to me, or very important, is that these things that matter so much to me,
Right.
especially this, like my record collection, or at least some of my collection, that I want someone who will love it as much as I do would have it somehow.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how to make that happen. And once I'm gone, obviously it's out of my hands.
Right.
But it does feel like I want I want someone who really wants these things to have them. And I
Mhm.
have to say I'm not quite sure how to find those people yet. So
Right. Right. We-
so
yes.
yeah, so I don't know, but there's nobody. My name is still on the back of this album. My maiden name,
Right.
G. So obviously it's still mine.
Yes, it is definitely yours.
It's
It's
definitely
definitely
mine.
yours. And that's, part of the conversation is, who does, I always ask in my live events, it is just for people to consider it and, to think about where it would go. And needless to say, something it could have financial, like it could have financial value, but it definitely has cultural value, as we know. And and we've got museums and historical societies that look for unique items as well. So I just encourage people to realize that what are historical societies and museums but great big show and tells? That's what they are. And so, and there's a story that gets attached to, like you have deep stories with this. And it's not in a lot of ways, the point is it's not just your story, right? This
Right. It's
is
not. It's right.
this is this is history. It's our story. It's cultural history and human history, as and definitely in the United States and our time. So it's important to think where these objects are going to go. And as someone who's very connected with people in the death care industry, it's really I've come to realize it's really important to have these conversations and think about it and make plans before you go, because the problem is when if you don't have a plan for it, you're going to leave your loved ones in a position to sadly probably get a dumpster. So it's so much more important for this stuff with the stories, as I don't have to tell you, with the stories, because nobody wants the stuff, but if they know the value, they know the story behind it,
Exactly.
it's much more valuable to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was kind of the point I was making yesterday in this Zoom conference, that yeah, I even mentioned yesterday historical societies. So thank you for bringing it back full circle. So that's something I should look into, especially for some of these kinds of things that are, as you say, there's a cultural history there too. And so, yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, I encourage people too, when I'm doing stories, do you have letters maybe from your parents, or from that matter? Uh, please don't trash those. Just make sure that somebody knows that they're important, not only to your history, but to your descendants. I mean, my history is the history for future generations as well. So
Absolutely. Without a doubt, it's history, it's important. And and it needs to be, we need to honor it in some ways and that's the whole point of the work that both of us do in personal history and legacy work is that our stories, everybody's stories counts. And even if you think, oh, I've had this conversation with somebody, even if you think, oh, my kids don't really want that, or my kids don't care, or my whatever, it's like they might not right at this moment, right? So,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
it might even not be them that gets the first interest. It's the grandchildren or someone who's like, oh, you my grandmother or my aunt or my best friend so and so, she had the first album from from the Beatles, and it's like even before, I mean, that's the
Exactly.
thing. And then that will lead other people into, oh, that is fascinating that she did that. And oh, she got into the field of audio recording because of the transistor and because she was so attuned to music and stories, because music is another form of storytelling, right?
Absolutely is. And I just have to say, the Statler brothers, if you don't know them, I mean, they're not around anymore, but they tell stories. I mean, most country songs tell stories, but these guys really tell stories. And there's a lot of double entendre, and they're just fun. They're just fun songs. So.
Well, I hope that my audience members will check them out, and I will too. I think I've heard some of their work because
You probably have.
my mother was really big into country, so I probably did that. But I'll have to revisit after this episode. So
Oh, I have to quickly
yes,
say too
yes.
that there were a couple of other young women about my age in the neighborhood, and we formed the Arcade Beatles fan club. It was never official, but it met in the building out behind my house, which was a former chicken coop. We painted it up. I mean, and then I had my little battery powered record player, which actually I just gave or loaned to my granddaughter because she's into vinyl. And so I just in the last few weeks loaned it to her, the one that you gave the horses to.
Yes.
Just bring it full circle again. And yes, so we would just sit there in our little clubhouse and play Beatles records and
Oh
stuff.
my
So
God.
yeah, so there was that. It was never official, but I was the president. I think it's safe to say it was it was in my backyard.
It was in your chicken coop.
It was, and it was quite a lovely. It had some windows. I mean, it was something.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Anyway,
that is a beautiful, beautiful, like you said, wrapping up. Like that gives me quite an image in my mind. So
so let me
without
tell
further
you.
ado, I'm going to turn it back over to you to,
Okay.
yeah, to share how
Well,
people can find you and learn more about you and all that kind of good stuff.
absolutely. Well, thanks for the opportunity. Again, as I said, the name of my business is Real to Reel, REALTOREEL. Both of the R's are capitalized. The T on two is not, just to make it clear. I started my business on September 1 of 2001. So just recently in the last weeks, celebrated, or at least it was obvious when I looked at Facebook that, oh yes, that was the anniversary of when I started. And as I say, I knew from the start that if I was going to do this work, and I discovered the Association of Personal Historians in an old magazine at the gym. So that's how I learned about in a good housekeeping. And it was an article about Lettice Stewart, who you and I both know. And it was how she takes her recorder, goes to your home and records your story. And I was just like, I'd been for years and years and years trying to figure out, I knew I wanted to do something with tape recorders and interviewing people. And I didn't know how to do it. And of course, that was before blogs and all those, you could kind of have your own show,
Yep.
which I actually did have a radio show, but we don't even want to go there. That yeah, so I found this and then discovered the Association of Personal Historians. And I went to the first meeting conference in Tampa, Florida, right after 9/11, I flew across the country to Tampa, Florida,
Wow.
and went to that very first meeting in 2001. So anyway, that's how I discovered that, hey, there was such a thing. And I knew from the moment I found out about it that I was going to do it in audio. Like that, there was no question. So I met with some local friends here before the conference, and they were all doing books, as you said, and some were doing video. And everyone said, "What are you talking about? Audio?" Like nobody wants audio. Like, what do you? So I had a conversation soon after with Latisse, literally got in touch with her and said, "This is what I want to do. I loved the article about you." And she does books. And she said, "Gloria, if you figured out what you want to do, figure out how to do it and just do it. Like, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do this and that no one wants it." And thank you, Latisse, till my dying day, for saying, just do what you want to do and what you know how to do. And so after I got off that phone call with her, literally, I was like, okay, that's it. I know I'm good. I'm good. I've got permission to do what I want to do. And I really do feel like I kind of figured it all out. When I started, I was recording on cassettes. You can't edit cassettes. So that taught me how to interview fairly well and to keep my mouth shut, which anyone who knows me knows that that can be a challenge. But I do know when I'm working how to keep my mouth shut, to ask the question and wait. And that's really important when you are working in audio, critically important, more important than I think in any other, maybe video. But so I figured out how to do it. And then, of course, as time went on, I switched to digital and was producing CDs. And my finished product now is flash drives, because I know I could just send it through the cloud or whatever. But as I say, I live in Oregon and I know what clouds are. I see them up there. And occasionally they're not there. And when they're not there, I don't know where they are and what they've done with my stuff that I put in them. And so I still want to hand you something. So it's in a little package. It's a nice little package, which I could grab if you want to give me 1 second to grab one.
Sure.
But that's okay. It's still it's still in a CD case, but.
Oh, okay. That works just fine. Yeah. I love it because I don't think I've seen. Oh,
So
very neat.
it sort of looks like that. And then on the back, there's what I call an index of what we talked about. And so that's still kind of what the finished product looks like. It's just that inside there's a flash drive instead of a CD.
That's very neat. And then people could basically upload that to
anything,
any place, and then they can listen to it just like they listen to a podcast.
Exactly. Once I hand it off to them, I tell them it's yours. You can do anything you want. Put it online. Yeah, get it transcribed. I have colleagues, as I say, who transcribe. If you'd like it turned into a book, turn it into the soundtrack for a video. Just if you're talking about the family farm. Well, if you've got pictures of the family farm. So for me, personal history comes down to two things, just two things. And that is the stories, of course, the most important part, and the voice. For me, it's the voice, because we have thousands of pictures of each other, but we don't have the voice. And the voice is, as I say, unique as a fingerprint. Yeah. And when you hear, before we could pick up the phone and see who we were talking to, when the phone would ring, you would answer it, and it could be the Queen of England. It could be anybody. But for your friends and family, the minute you hear that voice, even if you haven't heard it in a long time, you know who it is. It's like, you just know, because it's who we are. The soul is in the voice, to quote the guy from StoryCorps, whom I can't think of his name. But but that's on my website. But anyway, if you want to find me, if you want to find me, my website is all lowercase, REAL dash, not underline, dash, REAL dash TO dash REEL.org, not .com, ORG. That's my that's my website. You can go there, learn more about what I do, listen to a couple of fun little samples, audio samples that are kind of cool. And you
Very
can
good.
reach me through my website.
And I imagine you can offer this to anyone, anywhere in the world.
I can. Before the pandemic, I would only do this in person because it's critical that you be in the same room so that you kind of have quote unquote control over the atmosphere. You can make sure. And it's just easier to establish rapport. Many times I've never met the person before we sit down to do the interviews. And it's more than one session. But of course, when the pandemic hit, it was like, I can't do that.
Right.
So, and everything went to Zoom. And I discovered, well, my church asked me if I would be interested in doing a podcast during Zoom, during the pandemic, and that would be done on Zoom. And basically, there were just little mini oral histories of people who, so we could, since we weren't meeting together, this was a way for people to connect. And so I said, duh, yes, I'd love to. I started doing them on Zoom. They're about 30 minutes long. They're still available.
Yeah.
Where am I? Can't even think of the name of Podbean. That's Podbean. Podbean is where, and they're still available there. So yeah, so I did like almost 100 of those during the pandemic. And then I thought, well, heavens, if I'm doing my little podcast, I can do personal histories. So yes, so now I can do them on Zoom, preferably in person, still the best way, still the best audio quality. But I had to tell myself, or tell everybody, but mostly myself, that even if it's not pristine audio, it's better than nothing. So just get over yourself, Gloria, and record on Zoom. And yes, and it's still the person's voice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree. I think when I was working with Memories Out of the Box, doing more of the actual personal history and legacy work, I would often come across people who saved little
Snippets.
They would save the little cassettes from answering machines, because somebody that died and passed away left a message on that, and so they needed it transferred so that they could listen to it and it would be preserved. So people are desperate for the audio. And I think there's, as we were talking about earlier, I think there's a lot of people who are not comfortable in front of a video. So I think that really offers, people who don't want to be videotaped, a way to still tell their stories. So that's
Well, and when I started, and even now when I go to networking meetings and explain to people what I do, I'll say I'm a personal historian. I help people preserve their stories. And they'll say, oh, you write books. And I'll say, no. Oh, you do videos. And I'll say, no. And then there's just stunned silence. So like, what else is there? So as we were talking earlier,
yeah.
not only are we a niche, like we're a niche that people don't even think of. And it's like, no, it's voice. It's, oh, I mean, they don't even think of that until you tell them, and then they're like, "Oh, that's a good idea. That's really cool." So,
Right. Yeah,
and you don't
exactly.
have to dress up. I mean, just wear something I can attach a lapel microphone to, and
And
or
yep.
we're good. We're good to go.
You're good to go, and no worries about the lighting and all of that kind of stuff. So
Exactly.
well, this was a delight, Gloria. I really always love spending time with you, and hearing your stories and hearing your life, and learning more about you, because I've known you for a while, but in this I didn't know about the Phoenix. I didn't know all about the music. I think you told me some things about the Beatles, but anyway, I've learned more about you today, and I hope my audience has as well. And for anybody, I just want to let you know that I do host generally speaking, monthly virtual show and tales live on Zoom, and on different themes. I've got 24 different themes, and I'm also available to host events for at senior centers, I am working with a friend on doing a show and tell for her wedding. These are also ones that you can use for memorial services and funerals as well, to have everybody bring an object that has a story connected to the person, your loved one. So reach out to me if you'd like to have me come and host an event for you, both in person and virtual. As I travel the country in Brooklyn, the RV, I might be in your town. So reach out to me then. And thanks again so much, Gloria, for joining me and for your friendship over all these years.
Marty, thank you so much for inviting me to do this with you. I had a wonderful time, and it's always just a blessing and a wonderful gift to spend time with you as well. So thank you so much. And all the best.
Thank you. You as well. And we'll keep in touch, everyone. Have a wonderful day.